Good morning. I'm Kathy Chase, President of Advocates for Highway and Auto Safety. Founded in 1989, Advocates is a successful and unique coalition of public health, safety, consumer and law enforcement organizations, and insurance companies and agents. Our efforts on the state, federal, and regulatory levels seek to advance safer vehicles, safer drivers, passengers, and road users, and safer roads. Thanks for joining us today for our virtual event to release the 2021 Roadmap of State Highway Safety Laws. A few housekeeping items before I begin my remarks. This event is being recorded, is on the record, and closed captioning is provided. The recording and materials from this event, including the full roadmap report, speaker statements, and handouts, can be found at our website, saferoads.org. Viewers may submit questions throughout the event using the link below the video streaming on our website. Please include your name and affiliation. Questions will be answered at the conclusion of all the speakers' remarks, time permitted. If you would like to schedule an interview with one of our speakers, please contact our communications director, Pete Daniels, at pdaniels@saferoads.org. Today, Advocates is proud to release the 18th edition of our annual roadmap report entitled, Let's Change This Picture in 2021. As our nation continues to cope with the devastating, wide-ranging ramifications of the COVID-19 pandemic, we are offering this report to spur action to implement proven solutions to keep motorists and road users safe and out of overextended emergency rooms. I also would like to take this opportunity to convey our sincere gratitude to the medical community, including our board members, the Emergency Nurses Association, the American Public Health Association, and Dr. Stephen Hargarten, who is joining us today. Unfortunately, instead of emptying our streets leading to safer streets, our roadways have become reckless racetracks. Speeding and impaired and distracted driving appear to have been more prevalent, and basic protections like seatbelt use decreased. This year's roadmap report cover features just a few of the news stories from throughout the country that reported on this trend. Moreover, preliminary 2020 estimates show that while overall vehicle miles traveled are down, the fatality rate has jumped dramatically. In 2019 alone, the latest year for which full data is available, 36,096 people were killed, and 2.7 million others were injured in motor vehicle crashes. The yearly price tag of the total societal cost imposed by all crashes is nearing $1 trillion. When considering just the direct economic costs, each American is burdened with an annual crash tax of $784. Historically, over the nearly 2 decades we've been publishing the roadmap report, nearly 600,000 people have been killed on our nation's roads, and over 40 million more have been injured. This public health toll is significant, staggering, and deserving of serious attention and swift action. Our roadmap report provides a plan of 16 traffic safety laws that have been demonstrated by research, data, and real-world experience to be effective. When looking at just a few of the issues the roadmap report covers, seatbelts, child safety seats, and motorcycle helmets, nearly 16,000 lives are saved each year on average by their use. Thousands of additional lives would be saved annually if everyone used these basic safety protections. The roadmap report urges state legislatures to pass laws to that end. And when coupled with the additional proven actions we support, the life-saving potential is even greater. As you can see on the screen, the laws fall under 5 categories: occupant protection, child passenger safety, graduated driver licensing or GDL laws for novice teen and young adult drivers, impaired driving, and distracted driving. The report rates each state for each category as green, yellow, or red, and gives an overall color rating, as well as an individual report card detailing the laws they have and the laws they are lacking. Those states awarded the top rating of green are significantly advanced toward adopting the optimal laws defined in the report. A state cannot achieve this distinction without a primary enforcement seatbelt law covering both front and rear seat occupants. 8 states NDC received a green rating. A yellow rating is given to the 30 states which have adopted some laws and are in need of improvements. 12 states were given the lowest red rating because they are dangerously behind in adoption of the recommended laws. No state has all 16 recommended laws, and overall 390 laws are needed throughout the country, signaling ample opportunity for every state to make progress this year. We will be widely distributing the roadmap report in the states, and will use it extensively throughout the year to support legislative efforts. Advocates also looks forward to working with the recently seated 117th Congress and the incoming Biden-Harris administration on federal legislative and regulatory efforts to improve safety and complement our work in the states. Vehicle safety technologies like automatic emergency braking, lane departure warning, and blind spot detection are proven to prevent and mitigate a myriad of crash scenarios. A Consumer Reports analysis from June 2020 found that when totaled together, these and other existing motor vehicle safety technology would save between 16,800 and 20,500 lives per year if equipped across the full US light-duty motor vehicle fleet. This totals approximately 1/2 of the 36,560 lives lost on US roads in 2018. We call on the new Congress and the incoming administration to prioritize advancing these systems as required equipment on all new vehicles with a minimum performance standard. With these strategies, we firmly believe we can change the picture in 2021 and beyond. Before I introduce our speakers, I would like to thank our board of directors for their support and also acknowledge the advocates team for their tireless efforts in the production of the report, as well as today's release event. The staff has adapted seamlessly to execute this event virtually, and I would like to express my sincere gratitude to Allison Kennedy, who led the roadmap report, and to Tara Gill, Pete Daniels, Kathy Barzy, Lisa Drew, Sean Kildare, and Peter Kurdock, as well as Jackie Gillen, Bill Braunrot, and Kim Levinson. Thanks also to Jamie Douglas of Daylight for creating the report cover and the New Media Mill team for producing today's webcast. Now to introduce our dynamic panel. Alan Manus, Vice President of Federal Affairs and Counsel for State Farm Insurance Companies and Advocates Board of Directors Insurance Co-Chair. Former New York State Senator David Carlucci from the 38th District. Vette Chavez, Education Outreach Coordinator of Impact Teen Drivers. Congressman Raja Krishnamoorthy, who represents the 8th District of Illinois in the U.S. House of Representatives. New Jersey State Assemblyman Nicholas Cervelati, who represents the state's 31st District, and Dr. Stephen Hargarten, a professor of emergency medicine affiliate faculty of the Comprehensive Injury Center and associate dean in the Office of Global Health at the Medical College of Wisconsin, and Advocates Board of Directors Consumer Co-Chair. A reminder to please use this link under the webcast video at saferoads.org to send questions, and we will do our best to address them at the conclusion of the speaker's remarks. Thank you. I would now like to introduce our first speaker, Alan Manus. Alan has decades of experience working with Congress and the executive branch to promote public policy positions that are important to State Farm and its customers. Prior to joining State Farm, Alan was the Senior Minority Counsel for the Aviation, Consumer, and Surface Transportation Committees of the Senate Commerce Committee. He also worked as an attorney at the U.S. Department of Justice and served as a Special Assistant U.S. Attorney for Washington, D.C. Welcome, Alan.
Thanks, Kathy. Good morning, everyone. I'm Alan Manus with State Farm, the nation's leading property and casualty insurance company. State Farm is one of the founding board members of the Advocates for Highway and Auto Safety, and we're very pleased to be a part of the Advocates. It's an organization which brings together insurance companies like State Farm, along with consumer, public health, law enforcement, and safety groups. And basically, this group has functioned very well for more than 30 years, and it's had a shared mission of trying to reduce crashes and prevent death and injury. It's been very successful in that mission. And if you need any indication of that or how successful it's been, just look at a study that was done last fall, which determined that 185,000 lives and $1.6 trillion in crash costs have been eliminated or reduced by the advocates' action through the past 3+ decades. So that's a really tremendous track record. And it's something that we've been able to achieve in large part because of laws and policies that are reflected in the 2021 Roadmap of State Highway Safety Laws, which we're going to be talking about today. So for nearly 2 decades, this report has really served as a great document, which is an essential tool, especially for state governments, state legislatures in particular, as they try to identify gaps in their safety laws. It's not a static document. It's actually been updated periodically to reflect the fact that there is emerging research and trends that we're seeing that indicate that we need to change the laws, or the criteria for the laws and the criteria for meeting certain standards in the report in order to maximize safety benefits. So that has been the approach that we have taken through the years with the report. It's not been a static document. But throughout its history, it's really been a catalyst to try to get states to enact laws and undertake policies that are going to be very helpful in terms of reducing death and injury. And it's remained crucial, coherent, and consistent. So as Kathy mentioned, this past year has been a very difficult year for our country as we grappled with the COVID pandemic. But there were certain states that really stepped up and took important steps to move their laws forward. And I'm honored to be in a position as the insurance co-chair of the advocates to report on the changes to those states' laws in the 2021 Roadmap Report. We're going to start with New York, and former State Senator David Carlucci is going to be speaking soon to give you more details. But basically, New York now has 13 of the 16 recommended laws. And in addition, it has also got a seatbelt law that covers both front and rear seat occupants. So congratulations to New York, which now has green status. And if we look at the slide, we can see that there are now a total of 9 jurisdictions, 8 states and the District of Columbia, that have achieved green status under the Roadmap Report guidelines. So that's great news. The other piece of good news I'd suggest is what's happened in South Dakota over the course of the last year. South Dakota, I think, should be given the distinction or the award for the most improved safety record, because starting out at the beginning of last year, they had the fewest of the safety laws on the books, but they were able to enact 4 of the 16 recommended laws during the course of 2021. So they really need to be commended on this tremendous progress. They still overall have a red rating. And Kathy mentioned that there are a lot of jurisdictions that do have a red rating. And as you can see from the slide that's being shown, there are some states where additional progress needs to be made. Really, in all the states, as Kathy mentioned, no state has all 16 laws. So we need to make progress really throughout the United States. So let's talk a little bit more about what we can do beyond getting the laws enacted that are in the Roadmap Report. Kathy mentioned that there is tremendous progress that can be made through the use of technology, particularly putting technology into vehicles. And specifically, the Insurance Institute for Highway Safety found, as you can see in the next slide, that there are many technologies that would make a big difference. But if you want to just pick out one that we really should focus upon, that would be the automatic, the forward collision warning system with automatic braking. That's just going to be a tremendous advance if we could get that. The IHS data shows that it would reduce crashes involving front to rear crashes involving injury by 56%. So that's something that we need to have as standard equipment in all vehicles, all new vehicles, with a minimum performance standard. And we should get that technology implemented as fast as we can, because it would be a tremendous lifesaver. Beyond that, the IHS found, and this is on the next slide, that basically there are 9,000 lives that could be saved annually if we put into place alcohol detection systems. This is a technology that would be a tremendous boost in terms of fighting what is a deadly phenomenon on our highways, which is impaired driving. And so we need to move forward with that as well. The insurance members of the Advocates Board, along with State Farm, we have been proud to support legislation that would require that all new vehicles have this alcohol detection technology. So that's a big advance that we need to make as well. Beyond that, and we have another slide which shows this, there are laws that are already on the books in certain states, but need to be enacted in other states that are in the roadmap report that would also advance our efforts to fight impaired driving, specifically open container laws, and then also ignition interlocks for all offenders, and then child endangerment laws. So if we got the combination of those laws that are listed in the roadmap report with the alcohol detection technology, that would really be tremendous progress in fighting impaired driving. Alcohol remains a leading killer on our highways, but it's not the only impaired driving problem. As we have seen, a lot of states are currently in the process of making it legal to use marijuana recreationally. And of course, when you increase the recreational use of any drug, you're going to see increased use. And that's going to mean increased drug driving. There are at least 3 steps that we should be thinking about in terms of trying to address the drug driving problem. We need to be thinking about funding law enforcement. We need to think about developing roadside testing technology. And then we also need to have some sort of impairment standard to address the issue of drug driving. The research does not yet currently support a per se level approach, but we need to continue to look to find an approach that will work in terms of an impairment standard. So that's a quick summary of some of the things that happened during the course of 2021 and some of the things that we need to look forward to doing. And thank you for allowing me to participate in today's conference.
Alan, thanks so much for joining us today and for sharing your expertise on all of these issues. Our next speaker is David Carlucci, who served as a New York State Senator for the 38th District, representing parts of Rockland and Westchester counties from 2011 to 2020. His distinguished record includes the enactment of more than 160 pieces of legislation, including the recent seatbelt law upgrade. Former Senator Carlucci's leadership in getting this bill across the finish line will save countless lives. Senator Carlucci, thanks so much for joining us today.
Well, thank you so much for having me. It's an absolute honor and a privilege to be here to join all of you as we release this report and we continue to advocate for the importance of looking at the data and the science. And in New York, we've had a real legacy in regards to highway safety. The fact is that in 1984, we passed the first legislation to require seatbelts in the front seat. However, it took years and years, and not until this year or in 2020 that we actually passed a law requiring that you have to wear a seatbelt regardless of where you sit in the vehicle. And this is something that I think many people don't recognize, that it doesn't matter where you sit in the vehicle, it's dangerous. And by wearing that seatbelt, not only will you protect yourself, but you can protect other people in that vehicle. And I think that's why it's so important that we're here today to release this report, to release this guideline and this blueprint of how do we save lives and improve the quality of life of people around our country. The reality is that many of the laws and the regulations that have been put into place because of the advocates here, many people never know that it saved their life or prevented an injury. And I think that's why we have so much work to continue to do. To us, it seems common sense, the things that we're talking about today. However, unless we really advocate and talk about the stories and the situations and experiences that have happened, these issues, these reports will only exist in paper. We have to continue to fight to do everything we can to make sure that these common sense recommendations are put into law and save lives. We've seen an increase in the amount of people sitting in the back seat of vehicles. With ride sharing becoming more prevalent than ever before, we have a scenario where you can sit in the back seat and you might say to yourself, well, it's my decision to wear a seatbelt or not. But what you're not putting into that scenario is the fact that you could injure or kill other occupants, particularly the driver or the passenger in front of you. So I'm honored to be here today. I look forward to the report being released and seeing these 390 laws enacted in every state, so we can turn our states from red and yellow to green, and we can continue to perfect these laws and make sure that our highways are as safe as possible. So Kathy, thank you and your team, and look forward to doing whatever I can to continue to work with you to make these laws a reality across our country. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Senator Carlucci. We're going to hold you to that promise.
Look forward to it. Thank you.
Thanks, and congratulations again to you and your other co-sponsors. And the biggest beneficiaries are all of the motorists in New York. So thank you again for your leadership on this tremendous victory.
Thank you.
I'd now like to introduce Vette Chavez, who has dedicated her energy to advocating for teen safe driving after the tragic loss of her sister Itzy. As an education outreach coordinator for Impact Teen Drivers, Vette delivers life-saving, evidence-based programs to teens and their parents in English and Spanish. Prior to joining Impact Teen Drivers, Vette founded Buckle Up Itzy to raise awareness for safe driving in her community. I want to note that Vette will be delivering some of her remarks today in Spanish. While we're unable to offer closed captioning for the remarks in Spanish, they will be available on our website. It is an honor to have Vette join us, and I want to express my sincere gratitude for her strength and actions to prevent other families from going through a similar heartbreak. Thanks for joining us, Vette.
Thank you, Kathy. Good morning. My name is Vette Chavez, Education Outreach Coordinator for Impact Teen Drivers. I became an advocate for teen safe driving and unintentional injury prevention after my 17-year-old little sister, Itzy, became one of approximately 4,000 teens who lose their lives each year to reckless and distracted driving. Itzy was a fun-loving, outgoing 17-year-old girl with her whole life ahead of her. She and I were extremely close. She was my best friend in the whole wide world. Itzy's personality was so big that she was friends with practically everyone that she met. She was the kind of person that you could count on to make you laugh when you were having a bad day. Itzy had big plans for her future. She had just started her senior year and was working towards graduating early so that she could join a medical assisting program. After that, she wanted to go to college to become a registered nurse. Itzy was truly a typical teenager, much like the teenagers in all of our lives. She was not perfect, just like none of us are. She made good choices, and sometimes she made bad choices, some of which ultimately cost her life. On a typical Labor Day weekend, Itzy and her friends chose to take a trip to the beach. They met at a friend's house, loaded up the car, and hit the road. It was 6 teens in a 5-seater car with only 4 working seatbelts. They made it to the beach, and they had a great day. On the way back from the beach, Itzy was sitting on her friend's lap while her inexperienced friend sped down the highway. While her friends sung along at the top of their lungs to the blaring music and had a grand old time, the driver was distracted and missed their exit, which caused an argument between the driver and her boyfriend. While this was going on, a tire blew and the driver slammed on her brakes, which caused the car to flip and over-end. Itzy wasn't wearing her seatbelt and she was ejected from the vehicle and died on impact. My life hasn't been the same since 8:55 p.m. that night. I miss my sister every single day. My family chose to share my sister's story to empower others to make better choices in a vehicle, whether they are a driver or a passenger, so that no other family must feel the same pain we do. Perhaps one of the most painful realizations was that these crashes are not sad, inevitable occurrences. They are 100% preventable. Had better choices been made by everyone that day, my sister would still be here today. I couldn't go back and change what happened to my sister, but it became abundantly clear to me that I had to speak up and share my family's worst moment so that no other family has to go through the same pain. So I advocate for making good choices behind the wheel using evidence-based strategies. Car crashes are the #1 killer of teens in the US and result in the loss of approximately 11 teens per day. To address these preventable deaths involving novice drivers, all 50 states have implemented a graduated driver licensing, or GDL, law, which requires teens under the age of 18 to go through a 3-phase process to obtain their driver's license. The objective of the GDL law is to minimize the highest risk situations, passengers, nighttime driving, and the use of electronic devices, while novice drivers gain experience. The learner permit stage requires a minimum number of months of adult supervised driving for a specific period, and the provisional stage restricts teens from driving in high-risk situations for a specific period of time. In states that have adopted GDL programs, studies have found overall crash reductions among teen drivers of about 10 to 30%. While this is good news, we're still missing the mark in protecting older novice drivers ages 18 to 20, who are not required to go through the GDL process. Data shows these older novice drivers who avoid GDL have significantly higher crash rates than their counterparts who went through GDL, and this difference persists for up to 3 years. The difference between these sets of drivers? Experience. Data shows that experience is associated with fewer crashes for novice drivers of all ages. We'll be partnering with advocates for highway and auto safety and a strong coalition to support legislation to extend GDL to older novice teen drivers in California next session. We hope others watching today will join our efforts. The roadmap report released today is a vital resource for states, policymakers, and advocates to gauge how their state is doing with regard to implementing evidence-based traffic safety practices, as well as determine strategies that they can implement to strengthen their state laws and ultimately save lives. The roadmap report finds that there's tremendous opportunity for states to do so, and especially for GDL. No state has enacted all of the recommended GDL provisions, and 15 states are still in the red. I urge all states to prioritize making improvements to their GDL laws in 2021 and look forward to working with impacting drivers and advocates to bring these efforts over the finish line. Thank you so much.
I'm sorry. I was going to say, please go ahead and continue with your Spanish statement. Thank you.
El informe de Roadmap lanzado hoy por Abogados para la Seguridad de Automóvil y la Carretera estará disponible en su sitio web en saferoads.org. Este informe es un recordatorio urgente que es muy importante usar siempre el cinturón de seguridad, no usar teléfonos mientras conduces y nunca conducir ebrio. Los motociclistas deben usar un casco para protegerse mientras viajan. Si conduce con niños, siga las mejores prácticas de acuerdo con su edad y desarrollo para los sistemas de retención para niños. Y si son menores de 13 años, siempre deben estar sentados y abrochados en el asiento trasero. Y para los conductores adolescentes novatos que están en el proceso de aprender comportamientos de conducción segura de por vida y sus padres, es importante conocer y seguir las leyes de su estado para la conducción segura, así como las mejores prácticas basadas en la investigación para este grupo de edad. A veces las restricciones de los padres deben de ser más estrictas que la ley estatal y críticas para la seguridad de los conductores novatos, especialmente si su estado no ha tomado las medidas recomendadas. Todos tenemos un papel que desempeñar para reducir las muertes evitables del tráfico. Muchas gracias.
Yvette, thank you so much for joining us today. Your strength and resilience are just remarkable, and we are so grateful for all of your work to make the roads safer for teenagers and all of us sharing the roads with them. Thank you very, very much. Our next speaker is U.S. Congressman Raja Krishnamoorthy, who represents the 8th District of Illinois. Having served in the House of Representatives since 2017, he currently chairs the House Oversight and Reform Subcommittee on the Economic and Consumer Policy Committee. Congressman Krishnamoorthy is also a member of the Permanent Select Committee on Intelligence and serves as an assistant whip. Advocates has been proud to work together with Congressman Krishnamoorthy, the other bill sponsors, and our insurance and safety partners to support advancement of his bipartisan legislation, the Safe to Drive Act, to spur states to pass strong state distracted driving laws. We thank the Congressman for providing taped remarks for our event today.
Hi, everybody. I'm Congressman Raja Krishnamoorthy of the 8th District of Illinois. I want to say thank you for allowing me to address you virtually. Thank you to President Kathy Chase and the advocates for highway and auto safety for convening this meeting. I want to thank all of you for your efforts to make our roads safer and to make driving safer. And to that end, I want to thank you for supporting me in my Safe to Drive Act, which is a bipartisan measure meant to help provide resources to states as they try to encourage people to engage in non-distracted driving. And so this will help to unlock grants to states that are doing a good job already and to create new ones in other states. But this is essential as we try to get the message out that it's time to put down the phone and to put down non-navigational aids as you drive. This is especially important for our young people, as you know. So thank you again for convening this meeting to talk about driving safety. We together are going to make our roads safer, and the Safe to Drive Act is going to be an essential component of our agenda for moving our country forward and making our highways and roads safe to drive. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Congressman Krishnamoorthy. Our next speaker is New Jersey Assemblyman Nicholas Cervelati. He has served in the state legislature since 2016 and currently is the Majority Whip, Vice Chair of the Human Services Committee, a member of the Transportation and Independent Authorities Committee, and a member of the Commerce and Economic Development Committee. Advocates has been pleased to work with the Assemblyman on his distracted driving bill. His legislative schedule shifted, making him unavailable to join us today, but he was able to record the following remarks. Thank you, Assemblyman.
Hi, I'm Nicholas Cervelati, Assemblyman from New Jersey's 31st Legislative District. Thank you for allowing me a few minutes to speak to you about a cause I'm passionate about, roadway safety. I want to thank Kathy Chase and the advocates for highway and auto safety for their leadership and commitment on this important issue. During the COVID pandemic, our reliance on technology has been expanded in ways we never really considered. From my wellness checkup to my fifth grader's gym class, my high school junior's AP history course, and our family's holiday celebrations. There is no doubt that technology allowed us to stay in touch during a period of required social distancing. However, there is a time and place for everything. During the same period, when driving on highways was down, we saw an increase in distracted driving accidents. In New Jersey, I introduced legislation that will prohibit the use of video streaming while operating a moving vehicle, regardless of whether you are holding a phone or not. I was motivated to introduce this bill after a contracted driver for High Point Regional High School in Wantage, New Jersey, was caught having a conversation via video chat while driving a minivan with a student on board. Fortunately, we were lucky, and that ride ended safely. However, each of us know it only takes a second for tragedy to occur. Since introducing this bill, I've literally heard and seen drivers streaming movies or sports highlights while operating their vehicle. Is it really that important? Can you not wait until you get home? Over the past 9 months, I cannot begin to tell you the number of times I have witnessed someone with their camera on while participating in one of the countless Zoom calls. The risks are too great, the danger not only to the driver, but to other drivers and pedestrians too high to allow this sort of reckless behavior. As my children, my 17-year-old and 15-year-old, begin to learn how to drive, I want to make sure they are responsible drivers and safe on our roadways. We will never be able to prevent all accidents or even eliminate distracted driving. But we need to work together to create laws that educate drivers. We must continue to strive to make our roadways as safe as possible. The report we're discussing today provides a roadmap for achieving this aspiration. Once again, thank you for allowing me to spend a few minutes with you, and thank you for your continued advocacy.
Thank you so much, Assemblyman. Turning now to our final speaker, Dr. Stephen Hargarten. Dr. Hargarten has published over 100 peer-reviewed manuscripts and has lectured throughout the world on gun violence, global health, and injury prevention and control. Dr. Hargarten was inducted into the Johns Hopkins Society of Scholars and elected to the Institute of Medicine of the National Academy of Sciences. Additionally, he was the founding president of the Society for the Advancement of Violence and Injury Research and has served on the Violence and Injury Prevention Monitoring Committee for the World Health Organization. Thanks so much for joining us, Steve.
Thank you very much, Kathy. Good morning, everyone. I'm Steve Hargarten, Professor of Emergency Medicine at the Medical College of Wisconsin. I am proud to be the consumer co-chair of Advocates for Highway and Auto Safety, and I'm pleased to join you today in the release as Advocates releases the 2021 roadmap of state highway safety laws. Our nation is facing extraordinary challenges as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic. The public health and healthcare communities have responded with the tried and true approaches of prevention and mitigation until mass immunization is achieved. Even after the vaccines are received throughout the country to all populations, prevention and mitigation will remain vital tools in our proverbial doctor bag. Similarly, this strategy needs to be applied to reduce the 36,000 preventable deaths annually, as well as to flatten the curve on the motor vehicle crash fatality rate, which is estimated to have spiked by approximately 18% over the first 6 months of 2020. The roadmap report provides specific and similarly tried and true policy solutions to achieve these goals. For example, the report promotes the enactment of primary enforcement seatbelt laws for all occupants. Without question, seatbelts have saved hundreds of thousands of lives and prevented millions of injuries. Even still, 30 states do not have this critical proven law to increase use rates. Additionally, it is long established by experts that children are best protected when they are in the seat appropriate for their age and size. However, only 7 states have both optimal child passenger safety laws recommended in the roadmap report. However, and the data is irrefutable that motorcycle helmets reduce serious head injuries and save lives. Sadly, in the medical profession, unhelmeted riders are referred to as organ donors. Yet this year, 10 states considered legislation to repeal their all-rider helmet law, and Missouri removed its 52-year all-rider helmet law to the peril of motorcyclists and the resultant healthcare costs to their taxpayers. Sometimes not properly buckling up or wearing a helmet will kill or injure a motorist, but always family members and other caretakers will be the ones dealing with the often lifelong disabilities with intensive financial and emotional consequences. This is why it's so important that the report be used to guide state elected officials to close the dangerous and deadly gaps in their state laws. The ramifications are literally life or death. Lastly, I am keenly aware of the demands placed on medical workers during these difficult times. Overburdened hospitals, round-the-clock hours, and the heart-rending decisions about allocation of medical equipment and supplies. We owe it to them to do everything we can to keep ourselves safe, to stop further straining the healthcare system. A major part of that is preventing crashes and serious injuries. While lawmakers seek to contend with immediate needs resulting from COVID-19, so too should they prioritize the countermeasures in Advocates' roadmap report to reduce incidents that will only serve to compound the current public health and healthcare challenges. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Steve, for your poignant remarks. In closing, before we go to questions, I'd like to quickly recognize several states who have already indicated their intention to address gaps in their traffic safety laws this year. In Missouri, several bills would upgrade the texting ban and curb distracted driving. Montana will consider an all-occupant seatbelt measure soon in the House Judiciary Committee, and we urge the committee to advance it. Safety bills in New Jersey will carry over from 2020, including to curb distracted driving, to upgrade graduated driver licensing, and to establish a pilot program for speed cameras. In New York, efforts have been introduced to improve child passenger safety and to limit the blood alcohol concentration while driving to 0.05%. Oklahoma is taking action to upgrade the seatbelt law to all occupants and to improve child passenger safety requirements. South Carolina will consider a comprehensive measure to curb distracted driving. And Wyoming has at least 2 excellent bills pending to improve traffic safety, to upgrade the seatbelt law to primary enforcement for all occupants, and to improve child passenger safety requirements. We commend the sponsors of the traffic safety improvement legislative efforts and look forward to working with them to ensure swift passage. At this time, I would again like to thank our distinguished panel and the advocates staff for all of their efforts to make today's event a success. And I would like to ask our Director of Legislative Affairs, Allison Kennedy, to share any questions that may have been submitted by the viewers.
Thanks very much, Kathy. We had several questions come in about particular states, and just noting that we can follow up individually if any of these reporters would like more specific information about these states. But if you could speak in general about the ratings for the states of Oregon, Washington, Nebraska, and Georgia to answer those state-specific questions, that would be great.
Thank you, Allison. Those 4 states certainly run the gamut and the ratings that they've received. I'd like to refer the viewers to our roadmap report on page 37, which begins what we call the report card part and breaks down each state's rating. So you'll see on the report that we have the West Coast and the East Coast, where we have some of the green states, and in the middle, with the exception of Louisiana, we have kind of a combination of what is happening. The bottom line here is that every state can take action to improve the safety on their roads, and they are incumbent to do so, especially in these times when hospitals throughout the country are overburdened by the pandemic. We have these proven solutions, and if elected officials are to take action now, we know with certainty, because of research and experience, that lives will be saved on our roads. Now, specifically talking about Oregon and Washington, as Alan mentioned, those are 2 of the best states in the country, both receiving green ratings. Allison, would you remind me what were the other? I know that Georgia was one of them, and what was the other state, please?
Sure, Nebraska.
Yes, unfortunately, those states definitely have some work to do. Georgia receives a gold or a yellow rating, and Nebraska a red rating. And again, I'll just refer our viewers to the pages subsequent to page 37, which breaks down specifically. You can see what states the laws, what state laws they have and which ones they're lacking. And we are more than glad to provide any follow-up information, as well as to work with anyone who is on today's who is watching today's event to work to advance these life-saving measures.
Thanks, Kathy. The next question comes from the Star-Ledger in New Jersey. And the question is, are we putting too much emphasis on technology and not enough on building driver car control skills, especially if drivers rely on technology instead of good driving practices? And whether there's a greater danger when technology fails to work properly and a driver with poor skills suddenly is put in a life or death situation behind the wheel?
That is a great question. It has been proven by the Insurance Institute for Highway Safety that the advanced driver assistance systems, known as ADAS, including automatic emergency braking, lane departure warning, blind spot detection, and others, can save lives and mitigate crashes. However, advocates contend that a lack of minimum performance standards is holding back these efforts somewhat because right now, auto manufacturers can put these technologies into their new vehicles if they wish, but there's no bottom line of safety that they have to meet. If the US Department of Transportation promulgated final laws saying an automatic emergency braking system has to stop in X number of feet, then we, the consumers, would know that there's a safety assurance. When we go into the auto safety, when consumers go into auto showrooms to buy a new vehicle, it's a very exciting time. We want them to know that the US Department of Transportation, in essence, has their back and is protecting them by ensuring these safety technologies will perform as needed. Now, in addition to minimum performance standards, coupled hand in hand with that is that these proven technologies should be required in all new cars. Right now, they are either bundled with non-safety features or bells and whistles, such as a heated seat or a moonroof or a heated steering wheel. In other words, you can't buy them a la carte as you can at a menu at a restaurant. We would like to see that to be able to happen so that everyone can be afforded the opportunity on the path to getting them into all new vehicles. If we, as I mentioned during my remarks, the Consumer Reports found that tens of thousands of lives would be saved if we can get these technologies into vehicles. Now, I appreciate the point made that some drivers may be too reliant on these technologies, and there is a sweet spot that people need to be informed of how to properly use these technologies and not become overly reliant on them. Similarly, auto manufacturers should not be overpromising what their technology should do. So we do have some sorting out to be done here, but we know the path forward. And our roadmap report offers the solutions and the way to achieve this goal.
Yeah, Kathy, if I could just add to that, I think it's exactly right that this is a roadmap of not just one silver bullet. We know there's not just one policy or one law or one area that is going to make all the difference, that this is legislation that's layered on top of each other that will make a dramatic difference overall, whether it's requiring auto manufacturers to do the right thing and put in the right safety features, or having a graduated driver's license so that the driver understands how to use this technology and how to use the automobile and the rules of the road appropriately, or requirements that you have to buckle a seatbelt or do X, Y, and Z. So this is a combination. And that's why I think this report is so important and so meaningful, that you take the pieces of it, these 390 laws that need to be done across the country, layer them on top of each other, and we know we will save lives.
Thank you, Senator Carlucci. I couldn't agree more, of course.
At this time, there are no additional questions coming in through the webcast viewer.
Okay. We'll wait just a couple seconds. In the meantime, I'd like to just again extend my sincere gratitude to all of our outstanding speakers today who took the time to prepare and to join us to pass along the message that we can do more. The good news in this time of challenging, of different challenges in our nation, the good news is that we offer this report that has proven solutions to make our roads safer for all motorists. We need our elected officials on the state and federal level to take this report and review it and take immediate action. The result will be lives saved for 2021 and years to come. And Allison, if we don't have any further questions at this time, I think we will conclude the event.
Still none at this time.
Okay. Thank you so much for joining us. Again, our report and all of the documents can be found on our website, which is saferoads.org. And if any members of the press would like to interview any of the speakers on the panel individually, please contact our communications director, Pete Daniels at pdaniels@saferoads.org. Thank you again and have a safe day.